Hey, Inspired Tribe. Welcome to the Inspired Livestream on Monday, February 22nd, 2021, WON 2021. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free, we're excited that you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Let us know. I see some people are already letting us know where they're tuning in from. Elaine says she's tuning in from the UK. Would love to know where exactly from the UK. I know Black Sky's tuning in from Portland, or just I think outside of Portland. So as soon as you come on, please hit the like button and please let us know where you are tuning in from, Inspired Tribe. We're here to connect all of you, all of us. Today we're talking about the breaking matrix. I'm fair warning right off the bat. Fair warning. The way we're going to dive into this topic today might not be completely suitable for everyone. And if you feel like this is a wobbly day as it is, and you just don't want to experience a mind bender, then this might be a good time to log off and maybe come back later. Although I don't even know if this live stream is going to be here later. We might just delete it afterwards. But we're going to dive into this topic. We believe it's very important. We believe there's many of you out there who are resonating with the words before you even hear them. You're just waiting for them to find you so you kind of get a confirmation for what you're feeling. And this is what we're talking about today. So what is the matrix? I mean, we talked about this, and we're going to go, this is real talk today, okay? And we're going to get to the point that is really, really empowering. And we're going to peel the layers of the onion. So sit back, grab a glass of water, open your mind, open your heart. This is where information comes in, and then it spreads throughout the system. So let's do that today. So first of all, we kind of have talked about the matrix in the past weeks a little bit here and there. But the matrix, if you haven't seen the movie The Matrix, it pretty much describes it really well. But the matrix is a hologram. It is an artificial construct that we have been living in and we have been kept in. And this is maybe the wrong word, because there is a certain kind of participation from us, because there is a way to not just escape the matrix, but to transcend it. And this is what we're going to talk about. But the matrix is this system that some describe as three-dimensional. Some describe it as, having a limited amount of layers. And the matrix is a system that is brought to society through rules, through laws, through perception, through belief system, through psychology. This is what this whole construct is. If you look out into society, people they can't really put their mind on it, but what it really is, it's a psychological game. But it's not just that. It is also using all tools available to keep our perception very limited to who we are, what we're capable of, and what this reality really is. So if you want to put a number to it, with our normal sensual perception, with our eyes, with our ears, with touching, with the senses that we have, we perceive, I would probably say, between 1% and 3% of the physical reality that is out there. And so we see clearer now every single day that this is an artificial hologram. This is not what we're seeing out there is not really reality. It is a very limited viewpoint, and we are constantly being conditioned to stay in that viewpoint, but it's not working anymore. It's beginning to break. And when I say beginning, it's been breaking for a while, but in the big span of human history, we're in the beginning stages of breaking this matrix up, and it's happening very fast at that. But so this has been going on for decades now. But there was a breaking point that started this mass awakening. There was an event that woke so many people up all at once, and it shook the planet, it shook the people, it shook us all completely, and it triggered a journey that is now full of expansion, that is now full of newness. And this was September 11th, 2001. When this event occurred, for the first time, because we have had mass events before, we've had mass events that kind of affected the whole planet, but nothing like September 11th. And this, for the first time, we had the technology to, for this, it was a mass holographic event. And don't get me wrong, people got killed and people got hurt, and there was real tragedy in that event. It's not about that. But what it really did is, for the groups of people and for the groups of entities that really desire to keep tighter control, they have triggered, implemented, and carried out this event with their own agenda, with bringing about a new layer in this matrix and tighter control. But what has happened is, because of how it was done and because of the spiritual awakening within people, for the first time, there weren't just 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 100 people that kind of saw right through it from the beginning. There were hundreds of thousands and millions in the first week after this happening that felt, saw, and knew that something was wrong, and it didn't occur the way that it was presented, and that there was a much greater story behind it. And this began breaking up the matrix in a way that's never happened before, because people didn't just look at that event in an isolated way. Once they started digging, once they started feeling and intuitively going into the research, they began finding deeper and deeper layers. And what most people realized was, it wasn't just about this isolated event. It opened a whole rabbit hole, a whole book of stories, a whole book of dimensions and levels and layers. And once people started to realize that the story is so much bigger than what it appears, and that it is completely different than it was presented, no one ever got the exact answer as to how this event really occurred and who exactly all was really involved. But that wasn't the point. The point of this event was to create big cracks in this hologram, in this artificial reality that we call the Matrix. And it happened. The cracks got bigger and bigger after months and years, and to the point where, for the first time in history, more than half of the people that were asked in any given country around the planet, especially in the United States, but anywhere, who were asked about whether they believe the official narrative of 9/11 or not, for the first time in history, more than half of the population consistently said no. No, there was something more going on that day. Although only a small percentage of those people actually did some research. Most of them were basing their answer on intuition and feeling. And this is really the important part here, because this is what happens when the matrix begins to break. And something else happened afterwards. After 9/11, in the coming years, the amount of prescribed antidepressants skyrocketed. It went up thousands and thousands and thousands of percent. And this has been going on a trend up until now. So in the past 20 years, this has gone completely through the roof. The use of antidepressants, the use of opiates, of pain medicine, the use, of course, of all other drugs and alcohol. But why is this significant? Because you could just say, well, we're a degenerative society that has to use those drugs, but it's really a much bigger picture. This really points to something else. It points to the fact that millions and millions and millions of people have felt an awakening within. They have felt a disconnect with what others call reality, which is just this artificial perception, and they have felt something real, even if only for a split moment. But this disconnect doesn't allow them to go back to their life and function the way they did before. But this disconnect in itself also doesn't allow them to expand. They are kind of in between a rock and a hard place unless they make a decision. And this is what has caused for this skyrocketing in medication and over-medication of the population. Because when the spirit awakens and you don't allow for that to take place, you don't allow for that awakening to take place in your physical reality, and you don't allow for that to take place in your mental, psychological, and in your spiritual reality, when that doesn't happen, you have an extreme disconnect between your soul, your higher self, and your physical body. And then people medicate, because that doesn't do anything. It really does a lot of harm. But the medication, what it does, it allows people to feel less. So they feel less of the pain. They feel less of everything, but they feel less of the pain. So this in itself as a data point has actually positive roots. It means that millions and millions and millions of people have the potential to actually experience this awakening and this spiritual expansion. Now it's a positive indicator, but of course how it unfolded wasn't very positive. But what we have been seeing between 2001 and I'd say probably 2015, 16, so those 14, 15 years, we've had a gradual awakening process that kind of, you could actually watch it happen. You could almost quantify it. You could see the growth. It was a curve that was slowly growing and going up. And we could observe it, we could feel it, we could see it within society. But in the past 5 years, and then especially since March of 2020, so in the past year, we have seen an exponential skyrocketing of that awakening within people. And at the same time, the cracks that were in the matrix, they're now holes. They're now huge gaps. And we're going to dive into what that really means. This matrix functions on psychology and physical matter only. So basically, the matrix, or the society and the teachers of this, they don't know what they're teaching, but they have been indoctrinated just the same. So what this matrix is teaching you, there's physical matter that you need to manipulate in order to get things done in life. So this is the only way things work. If you manipulate physical matter, then you get the desired result. That's number one. Number two, the psychology is behind this is to create a belief system within you where you basically deny what you feel, you deny your intuition, and you rely on the interpretation of your physical reality. You rely on the interpretation of others. What does that mean? It means that you don't believe what you see, what you feel. You believe what someone on a screen tells you and how they interpret the events that you have witnessed. So many times people experience something in real life, and this goes back to 9/11, countless eyewitnesses that saw something happen with their own eyes, that were present on the scene, and that have described something, and then later their reality, their own experience was reinterpreted by people on TV often enough, so they began believing that story rather than what they felt and what they experienced. This is the constant game of this matrix. It makes you believe things because that's the only way it keeps you inside of it. And within these limited layers, you can call it 3D, you can call it three-dimensional. Within these 3 dimensions, the rules constantly change. That's how you know that it isn't real. That's how you know that it is artificial. The rules constantly change. For the longest time, when someone said, for the longest time, in this 3D reality, we'll give you an example, you had 2 genders, you had man and women. That was kind of in line with, you know, the natural observation of things. If you were talking about anything in between or anything different, you were crazy. Now the script is flipped, and now it's the other way around. Now, if you don't accept that there's an infinite amount of genders, you are crazy. We're not trying to get into the specifics of that topic. We're trying to make the point that within this matrix, there is no consistency, there is no authenticity, there is no truth. It's a constant changing script, and the script changes in accordance with how to best manipulate the people that are in that matrix. And once you begin to realize that, and this is what is happening not just to all of you, but to many people around you. And now this is where we really ask you, open your hearts, open your minds, because what we're going to talk about now will maybe bend your mind to its, you know, to the limitations of yesterday, but we know that we can open up a new dimension here. Once you realize what is going on, once you heal on those 3 dimensions, once you actually evolve beyond those 3 dimensions or beyond those levels, you enter a new level of understanding. That's a spiritual expansion. Maybe you've had an experience in meditation. Maybe you've had a walk in nature. Maybe you had a conversation that expanded your mind in ways it has never been expanded before. You have just then, at that particular moment, you have entered a new level of understanding for everything, for not just your life, but for the universe. And what happens next is that through events, through some sort of events in your physical reality, you are tempted to pull back into the lower levels. But with your new understanding, you cannot function in this matrix the way you functioned before. It doesn't work because you've expanded as a being and you're trying to put yourself in a box that is smaller than you, and that doesn't work. It will lead to harm, injury, and eventually death if people attempt to do that for longer periods of time. So you have to go with that expansion because it is a natural calling. If you don't go with that expansion, you will see it because it will manifest as illness, whether that's mental illness, physical illness, spiritual illness. It manifests as illness. But what also happens is the more you, what we call level up, it means the more you expand as that real spiritual being that you are, the greater understanding you gather. When you actually communicate in these lower levels, you begin doing it with much more clarity and intention, because the more levels you unlock, and you can compare this to a computer game. If you start with a new computer game, now I'm not a gamer. I've done it, a few times in my life, but I'm not a big gamer. But I understand there's levels, right? So you begin at the first level, and you begin to understand how the game works, and you begin to understand what the direction of the game is, what it is asking you to do, and what you want to accomplish. And after a while, you get used to that level, so you get really good at it. Whether it's fighting zombies, or whether it's overcoming obstacles, or whether it's jumping really far, it doesn't matter. You get really good at it. Eventually, you advance to the next level. If for some reason you go back to level 1, you will never see it the way you saw it before, because now you have the understanding of level 2. Maybe you've advanced to level 3. And with every level that you advance to, you gain a greater understanding for the levels before too. So now you come back to those levels with a whole new vision, with a whole new eye, with a whole new feeling and intuition. And now you're not just really good at level 1. Now you are a master at level 1, because you understand what's coming next, and what's coming next, and what's coming next. And so for those who are beginning to expand, or for those who have expanded into higher levels of awareness, for those who are functioning beyond this matrix, there's 2 choices. You can either come back as a quote-unquote enlightened master. Those words really don't mean anything. It's just to show what it could be. You come back and are inspired to do the work within this matrix, to heal it from within, and to basically transform it from within. Or you say, I'm done with this stupid game. I'm going out into wilderness. I'm just going to live for myself. I'm going to live in harmony with nature. I'm going to not care about society or what happens here. There's no better or worse. There's just your preference and your option. We, for the time being, have opted in to function and to work for a good part within this matrix, and to heal and to expand it from within. But there's something that is really important. The truths of one level don't necessarily 100% translate to the truths of the next level. And this is where it becomes hard to mentally understand, where you need to really tune in with your heart and with your intuition. So within this matrix, there are certain truths, there are certain rules, certain laws that apply in the matrix, but they don't apply outside of the matrix. They don't even work outside of the matrix. There's certain ways to communicate within these levels that don't work outside of these levels, and vice versa. So if you choose to become a healer, if you will, a teacher, a master, whatever you want to call it, you have to become a master at communicating on different levels in different ways. And with doing it without cognitive dissonance, which means that you do not bring disharmony in any of the levels, but you understand, and this is really easy, you understand it. When I was a kid growing up, we used to, because I was an athlete, we used to travel a lot, and that meant staying at very different places, hotels and inns and whatnot. And every single day or every other day, I was in a different place, sometimes a different country, sometimes a different cultures. Sometimes, sometimes hotels were really nice. Sometimes they were like more basic. So I met all kinds of people. And it taught me one thing. Certain times, certain words, phrases, intonations work, and other times they don't. You have to adjust. You have to assimilate, or the people that you're communicating with won't understand you. A truth that works on one layer doesn't work on another layer, because for certain truths, people need to have certain understandings and expansions within their own journey. And this is where the pain and the suffering comes from, because a lot of times people begin to expand. They have a new understanding. They have a new worldview, and they bring it back to that old playing field. And now they want everyone else to see it the same way they do. They use a new language. They use a new perception, and it creates conflict. But here's what happens. The people here have a truth. You here have a truth. They're both truths, but they're not compatible because you're coming at it in a different dimension. And so what is the constant challenge with what we do and with how we work is to bring these levels together in a harmonious way, because almost every single day, new Abraham Hicks videos pop up, and their universal teachings do not apply to every level of existence the same way. You cannot be trapped within the three-dimensional matrix and work with the highest universal laws and make it come together. It doesn't work that way. And what is the proof? What is the number one teaching of every master out there? The number one teaching before everything else is you have to raise your vibration. You have to grow beyond what you are right now. You have to raise your frequency to match up with these levels of creation. And if you're down here and you mentally understand the concept of something that happens up here, it doesn't mean that you connect. It just means you mentally understand it. But if you don't raise your vibration to up here, you will not meet with that dimension of creation. It just doesn't work. It does not work. And this is the constant challenge. This is why people have a mental understanding of something, and then they move into a phase of suffering because they don't do the vibrational work that it requires to match up. This is what it means to actually slip through the cracks, through the gaps, through the holes of the matrix, is to actually grow beyond it. And another thing that is really important to understand, non-resistance is not complacency. If you believe that in order for you to be non-resistant, you have to go along with everything that is happening around you, then you haven't understood the concept of non-resistance yet. Actually, it's quite the opposite. If you gain a certain level of expansion and understanding, you cannot go along with certain things anymore. You cannot comply for the sake of fake peace anymore. And there's another layer to this understanding. When you're within the matrix, when you're operating here, there's only one level. There's only one level, and that's the highest level. That's the all that is level. That's the universal source God level, where there is no conflict. That's the only level that's free of conflict. All levels below have some sort of conflict or greater conflict. The greatest conflict happens within this matrix, constantly and all the time. Do we have to participate in this conflict in any violent ways? Never. Do we have to understand that this conflict happens? Yes. Do we have to have some sort of tactic or some sort of plan on how we are going to meet those constant conflicts around us? Yes. If you do not prepare yourself, if you do not bring yourself into a state where you know how to deal with that, where you know which decisions to make and when to make them, where you don't know how to communicate, you will meet conflict unprepared, and you will fall into either a violent reaction, a complacent reaction, or a victim reaction. And that's why growth, expansion means so many things beyond just spiritual awakening. It means a new level of preparedness, a new level of assimilation, a new level of kindness, a new level of community. It's complete, utter, free, 100% personal responsibility. It means that you take responsibility for all aspects of your life. And this matrix around us, that's the opposite. It wants you to do the exact opposite. Don't take responsibility. Don't think for yourself. Don't expand for yourself. And whatever you do, don't ever expand spiritually. Don't ever raise your vibration. Don't ever become a conscious co-creator. This matrix doesn't want you to do that. That's why we're here. That's why we want to heal it from within. That's why we want to expand it. But one thing is clear. You need to understand this. Within this, the forces that are operating this vehicle, because you and I, we're not operating the matrix, because we're not even interested in keeping it alive. You and I, you and all of us, we want to transcend this. We want to expand this. We want to make it so big that it ceases to exist. But the forces that are operating and that are constantly readjusting this hologram, they have become masters at doing just that. That's all they do. Every day, all day, they just adjust the matrix around you. Here, there, here, there. So we have to understand that as healers with greater understanding, we come into this field and we bring new dimensions to it. We bring new levels of love to it, but we also bring new levels of confidence, of strength, and of power, not violent power, but confident and universal power. We bring to that level, because this is a takeover power. This is not a we go along. This is not a we're going to continue to watch this. We are taking over. And to everyone who's watching, who's an operator of this hologram, we're taking over your history. We're taking over. We have two choices. You can either come along, expand with us, or you can go wherever the hell you want to go. But we are taking over. We're taking over the ship. This has always been our ship to begin with. We're not hostages in this anymore. We're not participating in this anymore. We are taking over, and we are rewriting your primitive, useless, and completely inhumane source code. We're rewriting it. We're deleting it and writing a new code. And this code's going to be built on the universal principles of the whole universe. It's going to be built on the fundamental moral principles of our basic human existence. It's going to be built on our God-given, source-given, universe-given rights. That's what this is being built on. And for generations now, people have come forward within this matrix and have fought the good fight, because there are times in your life where everything you need to do is chill out and relax and move without resistance through the situation. And then there are times in your life, and you feel it, where you need to fight like hell. Sometimes that just happens. And that might be a split second, or it might be a day. But sometimes this happens. And what we have to navigate through it is our intuition, our true intuition. And this is why we always say, it doesn't help if you psychologically understand something, because you're being constantly psychologically manipulated. It doesn't matter if you mentally understand something, because you're being constantly mentally manipulated. But on this level, on a source connection level, if you establish that connection, this is the hardest code to break and the hardest connection to manipulate. If you are really in touch with your source intuition, that's why raising your vibration is always in connection with meditation, or whatever you want to call that state, where you go really deep, where you dive within, and where this is the most important thing. Because once again, if you enter that level, that's the only level free of conflict. No other level in your life, no other level in this reality is ever completely free of conflict but this one. And so when we bring this piece to the table more and more and more and more and more and more often, we expand this beyond the current dimensions. And don't make the mistake of thinking that this matrix is not breaking apart, because it is breaking apart. This is why we see so much cognitive dissonance out there. This is why we see so much disconnected information. This is why we see last attempts of a dying beast that wants to stick around and wants to, for one last time, grab control, but it does not work anymore. It is breaking apart. What can you do? Stop complying. That's the first very human thing. Stop complying. As long as you comply, as long as you feed it, there's still some sort of power left. When we quit complying as a group, we create a beautiful energy, not fighting it, not becoming violent. Don't comply. It's peaceful non-compliance with anything that doesn't resonate with your true authenticity. That is how this thing is that's how it's deleted. That's how it's dissolved. Because if you don't have any human power that goes into it, or just very small amounts, this thing breaks apart. As long as millions and billions of people go along with a narrative, with a story, and put their power into it, this has still potential to keep existing, even though it exists on such a fraudulent level. You can see it. All levels of our human society are transforming or breaking apart, and that is a good thing. Whether that's the financial system, whether that's the economic system, whether that's the social system, whether that's the scientific system, the religious system, all of these systems are breaking apart. And as painful as it might be to watch that happen, it is only a short period of time until truth and authenticity will shine in, and they will be recreated, they will be transformed and brought to a new level. That's what our job is to do here. And we begin with the individual level, because if we as individuals and humans, if we transform, the whole thing transforms. And then we bring, as one person, as two people, as a group, we bring that light to the greater collective, and it begins to break apart. And yes, there is a war going on within this system. There's a war waging always. It's always been, and it's at the height right now, but it's also at the moment when there is maximum pressure applied onto the weakest point of a structure. What happens eventually? It breaks. But you have to understand that this pressure is not applied by actually physically applying pressure to it. This pressure is applied by expanding so far beyond this 3D reality that we become such huge beings that this reality cannot exist anymore. It is a hologram that's breaking apart. It literally starts breaking apart. Imagine if you had a hologram that was right there in front of you, and for some reason the technology begins to fail, and you see little, there's a flickering there, and there's a glimmer there, and some part is missing here, and some part, this is what's happening. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. That's why they need to keep making up new lies that don't make any sense anymore. Nothing is sensical anymore. As a matter of fact, more people than ever are saying, I'm looking around me, I don't believe anything I see anymore, because it's all fake. It all turns out to be not true, and new lies are coming, and new lies are coming, and new lies are coming, and that's the matrix. The computer system is failing. The hologram is falling apart. And what is beyond and beneath it, it's beyond description. We've seen it in our deepest meditations. We've seen it in our most beautiful journeys that we've made. What is beyond this matrix cannot be described. It can only be experienced. And if you give yourself permission to do it, if you go deep within, if you, as Joe Dispenza always says, because we have wonderful teachers around the globe and in the universe who are giving us pointers as to how to do this. If you go beyond your current limitations and your current beliefs, if you go deep within, if you go into a new state of awareness, the whole world around you literally changes. We can only speak of these things because we've experienced it. We can only talk about the breaking apart of the matrix because we're operating beyond this matrix most of the time. And everything that's happening within it changes because of it. This is the power that you hold. And this is a mind bender. We understand this. This is as far as we can go in a short period of time, because we understand that if we go any further right now, the value of the whole rest, will be diminished. So this is where we're going to stop for today. All I want to encourage you to do is allow once you're connected, once you're here, once you have that connection, allow the speed of thought to accelerate as fast as it can, because within this matrix, you're being taught that you shouldn't think too much. You shouldn't think for yourself, and not too much and not too long. But we're telling you, if you begin to think authentically, and if you begin to think with this connection, and if you begin to accelerate your thought and your mind, the faster it gets, the more coherent and harmonious it becomes. The more you are adjusting your way of thinking to the way of thinking of the creator, of the all that is. This is real co-creation. This is real power. This is what our journey is, to become the thinker like the source thinker is, the all that is, God, source thinks. And when we're at that level, close to it, we begin creating new worlds. And this is what's going to happen. We're going to create new worlds, new planets, new everythings. And it's going to be so much greater and more wonderful. But you have to allow yourself to go beyond this fake physical reality. You have to allow yourself to go beyond what is here now. This is breaking apart. And if you seize the day, seize the moment, and expand beyond it, your future is limitless. Your potential is unlimited. And the potential of all of us, just the same because of it. So this is where we're going to stop today. We're going to maybe pick this up again on Wednesday. Maybe we'll have to delete this thing. I don't even know what it's going to do energetically. But for today, these are our thoughts, our 5 cents, as my wonderful wife would say. If you want to begin opening that door, and if you feel inspired to check out, we pinned a comment in the live section here. I'm going to go through all your comments after the live stream today. Go check it out. If you feel inspired to join us in one way or another, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you on this journey. We are operating on many different levels, and we're enjoying that. And we want to teach you how to do that. We want to teach you, show you how you can operate successfully and coherently, harmoniously on all levels in your life. It's not just possible. This is what you were meant to do. This is how you were created. And want to help you unlock that potential and expand beyond your wildest dreams. Inspired Tribe, thank you for joining us today. We'll be back on Wednesday. Please don't forget to hit the like button. See, very 3D reality right here. We'll be back on Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard, right here on the Inspired channel. Thank you for joining us. Bring your friends, bring your family. Let's expand this audience, expand this conversation, and we love you. Having you in the Inspired Tribe means the world to us. So we'll see you again on Wednesday, 2 p.m. right here on the Inspired channel. Love you all.